If you've been watching my channel for a good while now, then you know the name Griffith Park. It's the name of a location I like to throw around here and there. And there was a video that I uploaded not too long ago where I actually went with some friends to visit the park. Sadly, nothing came from my visit to the supposedly cursed park, but even still, my fascination for it grows faster the more and more I read about it. In all honesty, the more you delve into the history of the park, the more you come to understand that the famous Hollywood landmark has a darker history than most would anticipate. That being said, let's talk about the cursed park, Griffith Park. Griffith Park, originally established in 1896, is one of the largest parks in the United States, at about 4,310 acres. As a brief history lesson, the park was named after Griffith J. Griffith, an entrepreneur and businessman, who after having successfully invested in a mining business, purchased Rancho Los Feliz in 1882. Also, if you haven't pieced it together yet, Rancho Los Feliz would later become Griffith Park. It was in his newly purchased land that Griffith would begin an ostrich farm. It sounds odd, but ostrich farms were a profitable source of income, as ostrich feathers were commonly used in the making of women's hats in the 19th century. Griffith would later turn his efforts to lure in the residents of LA to come make home on his property, the influx of which led him to donate 3,015 acres to the city of LA. This generous donation would lead the officials to then name the park after Griffith, hence the park's name, Griffith Park. Although, the officials of LA County would later come to regret naming the park after Griffith. Not long after Griffith donated his land, he would be arrested, tried, and convicted for shooting and severely wounding his wife. It was this event that many would consider the catalyst of the horrors that followed. Well, there's that, and apparently the land was haunted by the previous owner, Antonio Feliz. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that earlier. It's a tad cliche, really, you know, building on supposedly haunted land. But I guess it makes sense. You know, given its proximity to Hollywood. And we all know how original Hollywood is. Anyway, let's keep going. While some blame the curse that plagues the park on Griffith's shooting, others blame a young woman by the name Donna Petronia. Petronia was Griffith's sister, and actually lived on the rancho with him. They lived a mostly happy life, never getting into many fights with one another. And even when they didn't stay angry with each other for more than an hour. However, their kinship would soon be ruined when Petronia learned that Griffith had not entrusted her with the land. In a fit of rage, she apparently cursed Griffith and his land. She specifically said, "The cattle and fields would become diseased and die, and no one will ever profit from this land." And she continued to swear, "One shall die in an untimely death, and the other in blood and violence." Regardless of which you may believe may be the actual catalyst, one thing remains the same. The land is cursed, and all the bad coincidences that happened came as a result. When some people describe things as cursed, it's often an exaggeration. But to put it bluntly, I don't think there's a better word to describe Griffith Park. No joke, this park is littered with terrible events. Let's start off with one of the first bad things to happen in the park. The death of Griffith himself. Just to throw it out there, yes, it was common to contract smallpox at the time, but many describe Griffith as basically completely healthy. No, he didn't look it, but that's how many people described him. Anyway, Griffith's death was bizarre, as it is rumored that he apparently died because he contracted smallpox. Specifically, only a day after his sister cursed him, and his land. Another, more easier to explain event was the park's forest fires. These could perhaps be seen as coincidences, much like Griffith's death, but it had a catastrophic impact nonetheless. In 1933, one forest fire decimated roughly 50 acres of land. The fire also managed to severely injure 150 men and killed 29. In 1961, another forest fire managed to destroy 814 acres, destroy 8 homes, and damage 9 others. Another fire, this time in 1971, burned enough land to lead to 30 years of repair. Lastly, and most recently, in 2007, a wildfire burned more than 817 acres. This devastating fire destroyed a bird sanctuary, 2 major tourist sites, and forced the evacuation of hundreds of people. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the city did have to cough up $50 million to cover the repairs. If the fires weren't scary enough, the park has had quite a few crimes occur from its inception. Reportedly, Griffith Park was a drug deal hotspot. Apparently, during the Prohibition era, many would use the park as a way to illegally sell alcohol. The park essentially served the same role as a speakeasy. People would go, get their alcohol, and leave. Albeit using the park as a way to sell drugs seemed a lot more sketchy. The park would also be the scene of other terrible crimes too. Just as recently as 2010, a woman had reported being raped in Griffith Park. And she wasn't the only one. Because of Griffith Park's mountains and wooded areas, Griffith Park was a rapist's dream come true. Many people apparently reported being raped at the park, usually at night, during the midnight hour, which probably is one of the reasons Griffith Park established a curfew. For those that didn't know, me included, Griffith Park established a curfew around the early 20th century that forced the park to be closed at 10 p.m. Like I said previously, the large amount of reported rapes may have been a contributing factor to the establishment of the curfew. That and the many deaths and murders that also plagued the park. Again, because of the large wooded area, the park experienced many murders. One of the more notable murders was that of a woman and her child. Apparently, for no reason whatsoever, a man murdered a mother and her 3-year-old toddler while taking a stroll in the park. Each was shot in the head once, but nothing was stolen. One of the more famous bodies found in Griffith Park was that of Anthony Russell. In an excerpt from a 1990s article on a discovery of Russell's body, it states, "Anthony Russell, found shot to death last week along the mountain's back road in Griffith Park, was the 10th body discovered in the sprawling park in just 2 years. But police say his death stands out for unsettling reasons. Unlike other victims, Russell was not hidden in the bush or thrown off the steep hillside," said Los Angeles Police Department homicide detective Sam Jacobellis. The 30-year-old Los Angeles resident lay in plain view at the edge of the road. Something that's a bit more mysterious than it is eerie is the death of a young couple. They weren't murdered, but died in an almost unbelievable way. On October 31st, 1976, 20-year-old Nancy Jensen and 22-year-old Rand Garrett would suffer a terrible fate. That Halloween night, while the couple was making love on a picnic table, a tree somehow collapsed and fell onto the unsuspecting couple, crushing both of them instantly. What's more shocking to me is that the story wasn't covered to any great extent. In fact, many classify it as just a brief blimp on the radars of local newscasts and newspapers, says writer Norm Bates. Anyway, apparently the tree was just left there, and no one got around to removing it from the picnic table. And for those that are curious, the picnic table is just off winding Mount Hollywood Drive. And on a separate note, you can add these 2 bodies to the several that were discovered in the park. Although I should mention now that the validity of that story is questionable, as many regard it as nothing more than a hoax, while others claim it is real and it actually happened. Not to mention the writer is named Norm Bates. Very cheeky. The park has had so many bodies discovered that Griffith Park has officially been deemed a body dumping site. So with all these bodies discovered at the park, you would assume that it would still have some spirits lingering about. Which many report that there are. Like any haunted locale, many people claim to see spirits, ghosts, or other entities lurking within the park. There are a few spirits many have reported seeing in the park, primarily the spirits of Griffith J. Griffith, who is said to be wandering the park on horseback, usually around B Rock, Donna Petronia, often seen in Paco Feliz Adobe, at midnight in a white dress, and Antonio Feliz, who is commonly reported being seen creeping around the wooded areas of the park. Another pair of ghosts people seem to report is that of a couple, specifically the couple that died at the picnic table. Funny enough, people who come to Griffith Park in search of paranormal activity will often make their pilgrimage to the picnic table to see if they can spot the ghostly couple. In addition to ghosts, the park has apparently garnered its own cryptid. This cryptid is often dubbed the Beast of Griffith Park. Many people have reported a creature with sunken red eyes, with green skin, and red hair to boast, all while keeping the appearance of a large coyote. According to the stories, in October 2005, 3 men were forced out of the park after they had the encounter with the creature. Most recently, in 2009, an 11-year-old boy witnessed the creature too, and hastily made his way out of the park. No one really knows what it is, but many claim it is a werewolf, a demon, or chalk up the sightings to drug hallucinations. Griffith Park is, for lack of a better word, strange. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, demons, or I guess monsters, you can't deny how odd it is for the park to attract so much bad luck. It's almost like the park can't get a break. Not too long ago, another man, Christopher Ian Vanderbrook, was murdered in the park just this past year, February 2017. Honestly, given all the bad things that happen at the park, you'd think the police would ramp up their patrols, by tenfold even. Well, with that out of the way, let me leave you with this little factoid. Did you know? The park is a very popular film site, and was a common place to film for great shows like Malcolm in the Middle.